Hello, everyone. My name is James Beecham. I'm co-founder and CEO of data security company Alter, and welcome to another edition of Rabbit Hole Reviews. Topic today is going to cover MCP servers and AI-generated code, and I'll give a little bit more information about MCP servers in just a moment. But why this topic today? I just spent last week in Paris at the RAIS summit, which was a very nice and well put together conference focusing on the use of AI within the enterprise specifically, but also with some commercial aspects to it. I was invited by a good friend of mine, Dr. Iman Ibrahimi. He's the founder and CEO of Protopia. So thank you, Dr. Iman, for letting me join with you. And I won't do a review of that conference, although I should probably get something out because it was awesome to be there. I learned a whole lot. But what got me thinking and started this rabbit hole here was the number of talks around AI-generated code and how agents are going to be, interacting with data and systems and things within the enterprise. And all I could think about the entire time I was hearing these presentations or talking to these vendors was risk, like just so much risk being introduced into the enterprise. And it was no surprise to me that when you listened to the CEOs of some of these very large companies, that their adoption of AI agents is lagging behind consumers. But 90+% of the code being generated inside of these large enterprises now is being generated by either AI agents or assistants to those agents. So really had to start thinking about this and wanted to spend some time learning about it. As it relates to AI generated code, something that we do here at Alter and that we're looking to do even more of. It has proven to be a good tool for our developers to have. When I think about the benefits of these AI systems for coding, I think about speed of development, and that's really where the risk comes from in my mind, because in almost every case that I know of, going fast means you're less secure. I'm sure there's some marketing people out and lots of different companies that will differ with me on that one, but generally going fast is trading off security. So I started digging into the different models themselves, the different providers. There's been all kinds of stuff going on with some of these major providers like Windsurf with all the Google IP buying, but then they got bought by somebody else, and OpenAI is not going to buy them. So there's turbulence even inside of these AI development agent companies. And so I came across an article that mentioned a report that said that upon testing 5 of the more known about code generation models, 48% of the AI suggested code had some form of vulnerability in it. So that caused me to go into that report and learn a little bit more. The report comes from the the report is titled Cybersecurity Risks of AI-Generated Code. It was published by CSET, C-S-E-T, which is the Center for Security and Emerging Technology, which is a think tank type of thing out of Georgetown University there in Washington, D.C. I don't remember the name of the school or group within there, but was a really good read. It actually wasn't too long, so if folks want to go dig into it, we can maybe put the link in the comments here below the video. But they found very clearly vulnerabilities inside of this AI-generated code, and that's not to say that humans don't generate vulnerabilities when we write code as well. I think part of the risk that this group was publicizing is that as these coding systems become more and more the norm, and as humans begin to kind of lax ourselves around the use of these things, that's where their concern for these vulnerabilities being placed into enterprise-grade applications is coming from. So there's another piece in there that I dove into around, what are the specifics of these vulnerabilities? And one of them was really interesting. It's a sophisticated type of attack, but not unlike something we've seen before in the past. 22% of the code produced during this test by the Center for Security and Emerging Technology showed packages from open source repositories that did not exist. Why is that a threat? It's possible that if these systems continue to suggest these packages, that somebody could go publish these packages. Therefore, your package management system or your dependency management system might start picking them up and including them inside of your code repository and therefore out into production, which is kind of a supply chain type of risk. This is not really a new problem per se for the enterprise. I think just the rate at which the vulnerabilities are being generated is probably the problem. I did get a chance to listen to the current CEO of Stack Overflow at this RAIS summit in Paris, and of all the people that I talked to, he seemed to be the most disheveled about kind of how things have gone with these LLMs and these coding agents. Their website traffic, stackoverflow.com, is down pretty significantly with the use of these tools. Kind of a shame because that website and that community, more so than just a website, was a huge help to me in my career early on and still to this day. But the idea of taking code that you don't understand and putting it into an enterprise application is not new to Cursor or Anthropic or Windsurf or any of these other agent-based tools. People have been kind of copying and pasting code from Stack Overflow for a long time. So my advice to folks is just to continue to follow your software development lifecycle best practices, continue to do code reviews. Heck, you can even use these agents to do the code reviews for you. So if you're a security practitioner at an enterprise, get access to the code repository to start using your agents to read through the code and try to understand where some vulnerabilities are. There were a few bright spots inside of this report around using these AI-generated code snippets inside of your application, and that is that you can instruct these systems to add security or add some checks to your software that maybe humans don't want to do. Things like rate limiting, things like forcing multi-factor authentication. There's ways in which these tools can actually increase the security of an application. But folks, beware that vulnerabilities will become prevalent. One of the places that this report felt the majority of the vulnerabilities are coming from is that these large language models have been using publicly available repositories to train and to learn, and there are a plethora of vulnerabilities inside these open source repositories, especially if they're not being adopted by large enterprise. So be careful out there. This is not necessarily a new problem, just the rate at which the problem could spiral out of control is much higher now given what these systems can do. Last kind of takeaway that I had from the RAIS summit that put me down a rabbit hole was around the use of MCP servers or Model Context Protocol, which came out, I believe, in last November from the company Anthropic, which I believe publishes the Claude coding model for a lot of people to use. Saw a couple of talks around MCPs. You can essentially think of them as the interface between back-end systems, databases, and data repositories for these agents to use. So don't necessarily have to have these agents know everything about your data or your databases or your data systems. They can leverage these MCP servers essentially as a proxy to be able to ask the server to go access data for it or to go do something on behalf of the agent such that the agent doesn't have to either have direct access itself or know how to leverage those systems. There's a major CVE published. It was CVE 2025-49596 found by Tenable. And Tenable was a little bit complaining that people have been talking about this vulnerability without attributing them. So Tenable, it's yours. And the vulnerability was bad, remote code execution, and then takeover of the underlying host. The vulnerability was actually found inside of tooling that was released by Anthropic to help developers test and validate these MCP servers. So the issue was not necessarily itself coming from the MCP server, but more so dependencies and sub processes and tasks that people are using to debug and to validate these MCP servers. So if you are developing an MCP server or you know your team are using them, make sure they're up to date. Anthropic has posted the patch for it. You can go look at Tenable's site to go find the piece here. But what caused me to go down this rabbit hole was listening to the talks of people discussing how agents are going to be interacting with systems and how even humans are going to be not using SaaS platforms in the future, but more interfacing with agents to have outcomes from these platforms. And it just made me stop and think that if companies like Alter or Salesforce or others are going to be putting these MCP servers publicly for agents to use, the amount of time that we need to spend really looking at these systems is going to be important. I think that there are opportunities to impose security and to pose auditing inside of these MCP servers. Think about them as kind of a choke point or a bottleneck to where security can interject themselves in there. But just be careful with these MCP systems and make sure they're all up to date. It's going to be a very fast-moving space, and the number of vulnerabilities coming out is only going to increase. So if you've seen previous editions of these rabbit hole reviews, you'll know that the federal government is starting to kind of reduce funding for the Common Vulnerabilities and Exploitations Program. And so just please be aware that there might be things that are putting your systems at risk before the regulation and governing bodies can make you aware of it. So stay up to date, follow known good developers, and most importantly, have fun while you do it. So thank you all for joining today. Looking forward to the next rabbit hole, and see you online. Thank you.